Hey everyone, so I want to bring to you the anchor system I put in my boat. So this system has already been done by Kayak DIY, where he took an electric box, drilled 2 holes in it, got a PVC pipe, and then I think he ready-made it. He DIY'd a pulley of some sort, and that actually worked really well for his kayaks. What I saw was from Kayak Dad. He did the exact same thing, but it was a more refined version where he used 2 marine grade like Harkin pulleys to actually get the advantage of a 2-pulley system, which gives you significantly more leverage. And I think he had a more stiff pull running through there. I like the idea so much from like when it originally debuted from Kayak DIY to now, but I've always wanted to put it in a boat. The system is so ingenious because it's very simple. It's not just the fact that it works very well, it's its ability to be replicated by pretty much anybody with a brain and the will to just do a simple project. I want to bring that same idea to boats. It's already been brought to kayaks. It already works really well for kayaks. But can it work for a boat? And more importantly, can it work for a boat as big as mine? Because if it can, then that means it'll work spectacular for a 14-footer or definitely a 12-footer. And it'll be a really good source of an anchor system. The anchor system to mount your boat and keep it still in a position like that is invaluable if you can pull it off. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you how I did it, and I'll show you the end result and where I think it can improve and where I think it absolutely holds strong. Very quickly, before we even get too far into this power pole system, there was something I had to do before I could even do it, and that was make a jack blade. It was sorely needed. And actually, it tied into making my system in the back of my boat, like it optimized it. And so we're just going to go ahead and throw this thing together real quick. If you want a complete version on this, it is actually for patrons already available in the exclusive playlist for this boat series. So if you want to check it out there, you definitely can. It was sorely needed though. And the bigger difference between this one versus the Alumacraft where I did the last manual power pole system is this one has Coosa board fillers. And I think it's just overall a little bit lighter than the one I did for the Alumacraft.
Sweet! Yes! This is the best thing I've done all day!
I was pretty excited to get this done. It was sorely needed on my boat. You have no idea. So the bigger thing is the other versions for the kayaks, they used an electric box. I mean, that you can find those at Lowe's or Home Depot or any real hardware store that sells electric devices if you want to bypass this step. But I wanted a longer and much better looking kind of custom version. And so I'm making my own boxes that are a little bit skinnier and more refined. To do this, I'm taking 1x2 aluminum channel. It's an 1/8 inch thick. I'm cutting it into squares, kind of tapering off and putting it into a frame. And then I cut little pieces of angle and stuck it inside the frame to actually hold the pieces together. Now, by itself, that is not a very strong version, but once we put the sheet metal on both sides and later on we stick an additional brace, which actually stiffens up the unit a lot, makes it very strong and rigid and inflexible. You'll see as this comes to start taking shape. You can see right here where the angled piece is in there between the 2 pieces to join it together. We joined them with rivets.
So there aren't many times that I regret not having a miter saw, but today was one of them. This is a pretty big pain to make the cuts perfect, but they don't actually need to be perfect because we're going to cover most of this up cosmetically and we're going to seam the ends up. More or less it's almost level. It's in the line, barely. These are called Harkin pulleys. We're going to run this specific because it's the exact thickness to run 550 cord. We're going to have to place one in here, right before the tubing, and then we'll have to place one coming in.
So we're going to have to make a hole, a fairly big one, on both ends straight for a PVC channel. We're going to be running a PVC pipe, melting the ends and tapering them down flush so we can actually have the real guide. And then the pulleys will sit next to the guide here that you're going to see form in. And that will be what controls the pull up and down and controls its actuation for a smooth drop down. We then had to flange out the top and bottom of that pipe so it would stay in the frame and actually look cosmetically okay. So I had to use a few different things. Really, you're going to have to just use whatever you needed to use. I used the end of a screwdriver, which did the initial taper, and then I used the flush end of that seat post for a pedestal. That actually finished it off. So that worked out pretty well.
That slides pretty flawlessly.
With that tube in place, we can now start to mount in the Harken pulleys. We're going to mount one on top and one on the bottom, and both of those will act to guide this pull correctly and give it the leverage it needs so that our initial pull, because we're going to be running this cord long, all the way to the front of the boat through PVC pipe. In order for that to happen, the leverage in this system needs to be fairly strong. We're going to be running 550 cord through this system. Get the stuff without the reflective tape inside it, because you can actually feel that tape rasping against your rollers, so that just the clean non-cosmetic 550 cord will work for this.
So before we even go any farther in this whole thing, we need to find out whether or not this is a terrible design. So it's either a good design or it's not. It's either going to work or it's not. It's working. Sweet.
Next, I had to kind of flange the entry points and the exit points for the rope so it wouldn't fray the aluminum. And that actually kind of sucked. Now, looking back at it, I probably could have just honed and polished out the port, and I think that would have been fine. But I was obsessed with making this sort of flange fitting. I did it out of HDPE because it's naturally kind of self-lubricating. It's very, very hard for anything to stick to it because of the point. The more dense a plastic is, the more smooth and slick the surface. So I cut pieces of a tote, melted it down with a torch and then a heat gun. I fabricated and molded that in.
Plastic. Nylon bushing. It is a plastic welder from Harbor Freight. Super freaking hot. So the heat gun and the other try was an abysmal failure. We did do the HDPE thing, but that's way harder than what we just did here. What we did here is just mount that whole thing down. That was profoundly easier than what we had done earlier. The only thing is it does block the hole. The regular soldering iron and reburn that out. You can totally do the HDPE version, which is arguably probably stronger, but we'll be all right. This is Gator Skin Soft Touch. Nothing else like it on the market. They finally got a final working version of it with really good adhesive. They send you these adhesive activator wipes. After you decontaminate the aluminum, this wipe, you run it down your aluminum everywhere where you're planning on putting adhesive. And then you let it dry for a few minutes, and you do not touch it with your fingers or you ruin it. You'd have to do it again.
So this stuff is awesome. It will literally bend around anything and stick to anything as long as the surface is prepped correctly. It's able to really be nipped and tucked and turned, and we'll be doing that over the course, and we're going to be doing this to both units. If there's anything I would have done differently for this whole thing, I would have used flush mount rivets, or I would have used flush mount, stainless hardware, and I would have pieced the frame together. That way the soft touch would have looked way cleaner. I ended up getting around it by carving just over the rivet head to get rid of the soft touch and then using liquid tape to kind of finish it off. So it did look more aesthetically pleasing, but I definitely would have just ran tapered hardware. Should have went with my gut on that. The next thing we did was trace out the sheet metal. We obviously couldn't do this until we got the units finished, but then we just cut them out with some nibblers and we put the pieces together. One piece we're going to be completely solidly putting on the side. That will be the inner piece, and then the other side we're going to use rivet nuts. That way we can continuously access and re-access the inside of the panel itself, whether it's to add something else or clean it out or run new 550 cord or unjam 550 cord, whatever may happen inside the unit. You need to have a panel
that you can consistently access. So we'll be able to rip an entire site off at any given time, like on the water, do maintenance. Stainless steel 1024 rivet nuts and associated hardware. And all right, so it looks like this version is ready to be installed. We installed it right next to the jack plate, a few inches away, so the motor had full functional turn. This glides pretty flawlessly down the PVC. The cord pretty much has to have no sort of friction the entire way or the system jams up. So to make it as friction-free as possible, I ran pretty thin, the thinnest PVC piping that I could find. I hit it through the middle core underneath these redwood 2x4s in my boat. Ran them all the way down into, their own set of conduits, and they came out, and I ran them up into an elbow fitting for PVC, and that came out to these pulleys here. They're able to be mounted flush on a horizontal structure, so I mounted them because that's where the elbows bent out to that pipe. And that's what allowed me to pull them through that entire conduit structure and still allow no friction. So the pull glided seamlessly up and down. The system is working really well so far, but I really want to give this an edge. If I'm going to put all this extra crap hanging off the back of my transom, I want it to accomplish more purposes than not. One of my bigger pet peeves for my older builded version was there was no spot to really put the nav light, the rear nav light, or my Yolotech stick. It was always in the way of casting, and even a few times we stepped on it and broke it. So I'm going to make them all the way in the back, completely off the boat, so they hang right in tandem, and I'll have dual ports so I can have my nav light pole and my Yolotech stick, or two Yolotech sticks right there. I didn't see this all come to place until the jack plate and the anchor mounts were on there, so I could see where this could go. I'm pretty happy. I wanted to do this for a long time, and the end product, the video quality that it gives me, is fantastic, as you'll see. The jack plate also gave me a few other options to hide wiring, because I have wires for the fish finder, wires for external green LED lights that flood the back at night, and then my bilge hoses. Really, those things needed a place to go. And plus all this extra wiring. After I fabricated and connected all the wiring for the lights, and then again for the nav light and Yolotech sticks, I had to run those things somewhere. But I already had pre-drilled holes in my transom from not having a jack plate and mounting multiple motors on it, and I hated that. But they actually came in fantastic handy because I took these wires and I just straight up stuffed them in those holes and pulled them through, ran them in looming, and pushed them down the transom into the power ports that ran into the main wiring section, as we will show you later on. Stay tuned, by the way, for the most epic wiring job I have ever done, and I'm glad to have done it in my boat here. Alright, they look pretty cool, right? Alright, so they worked for kayaks, no doubt, but can they work for this 16-foot Smokercraft Alaskan with a full DIY bass boat kit in it? Stay tuned and let's see.
Okay, so they not only worked well, they work really well. They stuck in and flexed out. Been legit stuck in this spot here, my daughter and I, covering her face. But we've been here. And look, my favorite thing was what I wanted about these manual ones is they flex with the waves. We have waves, right now. See how that one goes up and shrinks? There's no binding or flexing on the deal like the other ones, where the other ones are just, if they're down, like the crab legs, they're down. They're however much flex or wake. Because anytime when the water is low or higher because of a wave, there's either so much pressure on it or not enough pressure. It puts a lot of strain on the units themselves. But they went right down. Sunk all the way down. They were pretty sweet. we are not in the deepest water, but right here is about as shallow where I would need them. If I was going to use them, this is where I would use them. Pretty happy. Here we are, catching some random ass panfish. Poles in the water, completely suspended in this end. Digging it. Digging it. Okay, so the poles are in. They're all the way down. And we are in about 4-ish feet of water.
We're at 3.6.
3.6. That is, and plus the stuck's probably dug in about 6 feet.
Yeah.
We were in like 2 feet of water, or a foot of water, and the poles just dug all the way in the sand. It was hilarious. Like they were all the way down in. But we're completely still. We're not drifting at all. And there is wind. You can look out there. The lake's all choppy out there. There's still a little bit of wind blowing in here. That was knocking us. You can see the gusts from the pulleys here. But we're staying steady. Like
11 mile an hour wind and whatever.
I'm happy about it. We used them throughout the day. We used them to check out points. We used them to check out other spots.
Oh yeah, and those Yellowtech sticks. Way back there, they gave me awesome footage. Here's a little bit of it for a sneak peek. I'll show you a lot more in the end reveal of this boat as we move closer to finishing all the mods I did for the renovation. For this new job career I have as a YouTube creator for DIY/fisherman combo, I could not have asked for a better boat platform, and to take this idea from kayaks to tiny boats. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with next. Tight lines. Peace.